Greetings YouTube, this is Sixus, and counter traps hold a very unique place in YuGiOh, as unlike the other categories of cards in the game which have to include that they are incapable of being responded to, counter traps have this ability inherently. Due to this, they are arguably the most powerful cards in the game. However, as we will see through this list, this is not always the case. Beginning with number 10. Let's start off with a 2-for-1 special, as we look at the YuGiOh Beast counter traps, Disarm and Parry. Disarm states that by returning one YuGiOh Beast from your hand to your deck, you can negate and destroy a spell card, while your Parry does the same except for trap cards. And here is where we run into problem number 1, the consistency. Instead of utilizing a single card which can neutralize both spells and traps, they split them into 2 cards. This way, not only will you need to make space for twice as many cards, you will also end up in situations where you have one card but need the other one to do anything. And moving on to the cost, I'll admit that I understand the idea behind it. YuGiOh Beasts can only summon each other out from the deck, not from the hand. And there are cards such as Augustus and Momillo, which aren't very useful in the hand. This still doesn't make up for the fact that in some cases you will have to sacrifice your field advantage by purposely leaving a YuGiOh Beast in your hand so that you have the activation in case you need it. Now the third issue with these cards is that none of them have YuGiOh Beast in their names, and therefore Samnite can't search them, Equeste can't recover them, and neither of them can be used for the effect of Respite. And the thing is, YuGiOh Beast War Chariot is everything that these aren't, because the cost is not as much of a cost. You just have to control the monster. You don't have to have it in your hand. And it has the name, meaning it's searchable, it's recoverable, and it can be used with Respite to increase your consistency. Number 9. Next up, we have Fortune Lady's Bending Destiny, which you can only activate if the only monsters you control are Fortune Ladies. A name which I would like to remind you isn't even sealed by their support cards. This card can negate a spell trap card's activation or monster's normal summon, and then banish that negated card until the end phase, at which point it's returned to the owner's hand. To summarize, it is capable of only being used with 6 monsters in total. And yeah, the negation is good, but you're just slowing them down. They're going to get the card right back so they can use it on their next turn. Number 8. And oh boy, we have a wall of text for you. When an attack is declared involving a battling boxer, monster you control, and an opponent's monster, negate the attack, and if you do, send that monster you control to the graveyard. Then, one battling boxer or monster you control, in attack position if you declare the attack, gains attack equal to the original attack of that opponent's monster. Also, proceed to damage calculation using those monsters. Then you take damage equal to the amount of attack you gained from this effect. Now, so how I'm understanding this is if your opponent is declaring the attack, or if you only control one monster, all this is just negate attack, but you're also losing a monster. And the rest of the effect is pointless, as it just strengthens one battling boxer at the cost of another. And we're talking about an archetype that has counterpunch as a hand trap that can just increase the attack of any battling boxer by 1,000. And the 2 major Xyz monsters you go into in battling boxers have either a protection effect, so they don't have to worry about being about fighting. And the other one has a float effect when it's destroyed. So you might actually want that one to be destroyed so you can continue more plays. So due to this, I don't know when this situation will even be useful. Number 7. Tonic Force Field can negate the activation of a spell or trap card that would destroy a face-up Tonic monster you control. The negated card is then destroyed, and you can search out one Tonic card. The search is a good addition. But the thing that hinders it is the requirements. You see, it only works if the Tonic would be destroyed by a spell or trap card. And at this point, most time, everything's being destroyed by a monster effect. And spell and trap cards that destroy are either limited, such as YuGiOh, or unsearchable, or both. Moving on to number 6. Burgeoning Warflame. Allows you to send a Laval monster from your hand to the graveyard to negate the activation of a trap card and destroy it. And if this card is in your graveyard, you can banish 2 fire monsters from your graveyard to return itself to your hand. Let's ignore the fact that this only works on trap cards, and focus on how Laval Stenin, Laval Dragoon, and the fact that a lot of the monsters that work with the Lavals don't even have Laval in their name. Do this, you might not always have the cost, the discard cost needed to even activate the effect. The best part of it is simply just the fact that it banishes 2 fire monsters to return itself. And, well, most time Lavals need more help with banishing so they can continue plays with Laval Cannon. But, given that that's the only real advantage of this card, you'd be better off using Flame Veil Counter, as it can negate more stuff and has a easier requirement. Given with the Lavals, you're always gonna have fire monsters with 200 defense in your graveyard. Now, moving on to number 5, we have Rot Cancel. This can negate the normal or special summon of a monster at the cost of discarding a Rot monster. See the explanations given for Burgeoning Warflame and the 2 Glacial Beast cards as to why this cost is a problem. While normal and special summons are plentiful in the game, the issue is still that you need a Rot monster in your hand. And that's just to negate a summon. The Solemns can do that and more, and you don't have to worry about a very specific cost. It's life points in the case of all the Solemn cards. So most time you're gonna be able to pay them, and you don't have to worry about losing hand advantage. Up next we have number 4. Snake Deity's Command. This can negate and destroy an opponent's spell card by revealing a Venom monster in your hand. Only spell cards. At least Burgeoning Warflame could negate a Solemn card. And yeah, I'll admit, yes, revealing a card in your hand is better than having to discard the card from your hand. It's just that when you're talking about the main deck, there's only 4 Venom monsters. And as such, this is rarely going to come up. And on top of that, it's not even searchable in the archetype. And the monsters, well, they are searchable by King of the Feral Imps, but still, you're only talking about 4 monsters. One of which is just a normal monster, by the way, so yeah, not too good, especially given that it can only stop spells. Moving on to number 3. Taking a trip to the Zexor era, we have Heraldry Record. This card's effect actually has nothing to do with the archetype, as it can negate an Xyz monster's effect, which will require it to detach an Xyz material that destroys the monster. Notable cards it can stop include Tornado Dragon, Castell, Nuido. All of these cards are actually very powerful and easily summoned. The issue is the versatility, as there are now multiple decks that don't even need to summon out an Xyz monster, making this probably one of the most situational counter traps at this point. But it's not the most situational. Moving on to number 2, the most situational counter trap would have to be Featherwind. This can negate and destroy any spell, trap card's activation. Oh, sounds good. What's the cost? Well, the cost is that you have to control Elemental Hero Avian. Given how there are currently 11 different hero fusion monsters that could be summoned using Avian, one of the two biggest questions regarding this is if Avian will ever be on your field during your opponent's turn. The other of those two questions is why this is the only counter trap related to elemental heroes. And now, for the final one. Number 1 is Crimson Fire. When a spell trap card would deal direct damage to your life points, you can negate your damage and make your opponent take double that amount to their life points. Also, you have to control Red Dragon Archfiend. Note, I did not say Red Dragon Archfiend monster, I said specifically Red Dragon Archfiend, as in the original or Scarlight. And on top of that, it can only stop Chain Burn or Magic Cylinders, because Time Lords and Trickstars, which are known for dealing burn damage, oh yes, monster effects, so it won't even stop those. So yeah, I'd have to say this is the worst archetypal counter trap I've ever seen, and trust me, I've seen it a lot. And so, there you go, the 11 worst archetypal counter traps that I know about. If you think there are some worst ones that weren't on the list, or think that was too harsh on some of these cards, feel free to comment below. And so until next time, I bid you adieu.